Hi, I'm Darryl Denyes from the Clevr team. And today I want to provide a bit of an overview of some of the work we're doing across North America in the area of professional development and growth and staff forms. So I'm going to start with a bit of a deck and then pivot into a sandbox environment to show you some of the forms that we're currently doing with a few implementations. So here we go. So Clevr is a cloud-based digital transformation platform, and we work with school districts across North America, Canada, and the United States. We currently have about 140 districts that we're working with, small and large. And within those implementations, we have about 3,000 custom solutions that we've built with you or with the existing implementations that are using Clevr. And K-12 is all we do. That's our background, that's our business. We've been in the K-12 solutions software space for 15 years now. And when we talk about what we're doing across North America, we really kind of summarize it into these 6 solution areas, whether it's literacy and language acquisition or numeracy forms, student registration forms, volunteer community partners, special education, equity and inclusion, clinical services and referrals. We do a lot of work in that area. But today I'm really going to focus on the professional development and growth pillar and share some examples of what we're doing with teacher growth and appraisals, non-teaching staff, leadership teams, but also some other staff forms that are not necessarily growth and appraisal, but telework applications, COVID attestations, recommendation for hire. Those are some of the forms we're going to highlight. And as we roll into this is a screenshot of a dashboard that a staff member could have. And every time a user logs into Clevr, they land on a dashboard. What's on the dashboard is completely configured based on your requirements. And in this one, I'm landing as a principal, and I have 3 cards available here. I have my listings card, and this is listing the staff who have this teacher performance appraisal form. I can toggle between forms in this dropdown. I'll show you that live. And as I change the form, if I were to switch this to a recommendation for hire form, it would list the staff who are aligned to that recommendation for hire. Over here, we have a metrics card. And again, I can toggle between forms in this dropdown. What this is showing me is this QP performance appraisal form at Bayview School, which is where I am the principal. There are 10 QP performance appraisal records. 1 of them is completed and 9 are incomplete. So what that means is you can have required fields on a form that track the status of completion of that form. And in this situation, it's saying that only 1 of those 10 is completed. The other ones are all in flight. And this other card that's available on this dashboard is a quick profile search. So I can start typing a student name in here or a staff name, and it will quickly query the database that's come in from your core enterprise systems, whether it's SIS or HR systems or ERP. And once I start typing Darryl, it would search for that, pop Darryl up, and then if I click on Darryl, it would show me Darryl's profile and all the associated forms connected to Darryl, if I have permission to see Darryl. Here's an example of a PAO evaluation form, one that we're doing with one of the Capital Region BOCES in New York State. And they've laid it out. General information is where you capture the demographics, the pre-conference form, the mid-year review, the final review. And this is just showing a screenshot of the organizational values and the rating scale that they've aligned to that. Each of these information items shows more information about what unsatisfactory is or what excellent is, just as reminders to the end user. And this is a metrics card, as seen in the previous dashboard view. This would show the PAO evaluation and the fact that there are 158 records, 7 of them are completed. So this is constantly tracking based on the data variables on the form. And it also displays here, if I log in as an end user, these are the ones that are submitted for my review. And there are 0 there right now for me to review. Workflows can be embedded directly into a Clevr form. This is an overview of a workflow process for an experienced teacher. This one happens to align with the TPA process in Ontario. And then if I click here, it would show me the new teacher process. So again, Clevr forms have tabs and content. This is another example of a requisition form that has the workflow that this particular client gave us. This is their visual illustration of what should happen during the rec process. And then we've replicated this workflow directly in the Clevr forms. And this is what a workflow would look like or could look like. This is a telework proposal form. The details are above. And here we have the approval process. So the employee submits it. They click a notification to send it. It auto dates it and auto populates who filled it out. Then the manager, this is the workflow they gave us. Then they have a second level of approval. So again, the requirements were provided by the client, and then we lay out the workflow that's appropriate, specific to that form. And the notifications go via email, but they also appear in the notification board. So if I click on my notification board, I can see that I have a couple that I've received, and there are a couple sent. The screenshot doesn't show the couple that are sent there. Here's an example of sort of how the process begins. So here's an annual learning plan for an experienced teacher, a sample form. And here's another part of that plan and how it was a fillable PDF, but a table structure. So we received this information that was the background and all the domain competencies and components that align with this particular appraisal and evaluation. And then we build that into a Clevr form. So this has, I showed you the process screenshot earlier. There's also a checklist here of the things the principal needs to keep in mind as part of the appraisal process. And then this is showing the pre-observation tab, where I'm indicating there could be up to 3 observations. And during observation 1, these are the areas that I'm going to focus on. Observation 2 and observation 3 and so on. And sometimes you could have 1 observation, you could have 2. If you don't use 2 or 3, you just use the first pre-observation. And what happens is, as I indicate where I'm going to focus in the observations, that flows through to the observation tab. So the areas that I selected in the pre-observation for observation 1 have flown over here and here, and I don't have to re-enter it. It's populated over, and then I just carry on with my comments aligned to those areas that I indicated were going to be part of observation 1. Observation 2 and 3 would be the same. Here's another screenshot of how a self-assessment is embedded into the growth and evaluation process. So this one happens to be part of another province-wide implementation in Nova Scotia, where they've built the self-assessment directly into their teacher growth and appraisal process. And in Nova Scotia, they have common standards and components aligned to each of the standards. So in this situation, the teacher is populating their self-assessment according to each of the standards and each of the components. And again, permissions, the role of teacher has read-write access. The role of administrator would be able to view this, but not interact or edit it. But what happens is that the self-assessment, I should say, populates over onto the evaluation form where the principal is now going in and interacting. But they can see what the self-assessment was when they go in and do their assessment. This sandbox has some data that doesn't align, but this is basically, it's a shadowing of the components that were done in the self-assessment. And again, by each of the standards and each of the components. And I can check this to expand to see what the details of that component are. Here's an example of a form that we were provided with from a client on their principal growth and performance plan. So they had articulate the goal area, growth and learning goals. They had connections here to the Ontario Leadership Framework, and then also connections to their system or school performance measures, and then the strategic priorities of the district. And these were drop downs and these were free flow text areas. So this is what we did. We replicated that within the Clevr platform. The free flow text areas are here. Down below would be the connections to the leadership framework and the system and school priorities. And then this is what it looks like. As I fill out the growth area, those areas that I indicated I was going to focus on in the growth area under goal 2, and the setting directions comes directly from the Ontario Leadership Framework. And then they set up a 2-point rating scale. So those that have contributed strongly and those that could be strengthened. That's the rating scale that we were provided by this particular implementation. Here's a CUPE performance appraisal, so non-teaching staff. Again, laid out general information is where all the demographic information about the CUPE member would be, a spot for comments over here, and then the finalization as part of the workflow. But the performance areas were broken down into sub-tabs. So this screenshot is showing the interpersonal relationships, and these are the criteria that this district has aligned onto the interpersonal relationships. Then they have drop-down variables as opposed to radio buttons. And I think this was a 3-point scale, or maybe a 4-point scale. And here's another one from management team. So this, they call it the management confidential evaluation form, with the details of the evaluation around dependability, planning and organization, judgment. And here they have their 4-point rating scale with radio buttons and the descriptors that they have up here. This one is set up with an interesting ready to share component, which translates into, so the person doing the evaluation here is going in and interacting with the rating scales, and the person being evaluated can't see that until the supervisor clicks ready to share. So that's the workflow that they wanted. They wanted it only to be viewable when it was ready to share. And here's the workflow associated with that. So notify the employee that the evaluation is ready. Then the employee goes in and can interact with this field and put some comments and sign off on it. And then the permissions in Clevr can be very, very, very granular, meaning the employee can interact with this checkbox, but cannot interact with this checkbox, and vice versa. The supervisor signs off and can only view this piece. And as they are logged in based on their secure logging credentials hooked up to SSO, it knows who the employee is, and it auto populates the date and the name over here. Here's a simple hiring form, recommendation for hire. This was the fillable PDF that we were provided with, and this is what we did to it in the Clevr platform. One tab, not multiple, very simple, and data is entered here. You can have a field where this needs to be a telephone number, which means it needs to have 10 digits. They need to be valid numbers, or it won't accept it. You can have that kind of data validation throughout your Clevr platform. There's no limit to the range of forms and workflow that we're working with various implementations on. This is a leave of absence in the subset of appropriate forms, staff development, staffing forms. This implementation, they've given us, there's actually 700 forms that they provided that we're building out with them right now. Now, there won't be 700 forms in Clevr because we're going to work with the client here to optimize the platform for them so that maybe 4 or 5 forms live in the same form, meaning they could just be separated by tabs, and this could be a series of tabs on a form. But this implementation, if I click on this, it takes us to their current fillable PDF that's in their SharePoint environment, and they're migrating all their forms from SharePoint into the Clevr platform. Here's an example of the telework proposal form with the details where they have to check, read, and then sign off on the bottom of this. Here's where they're laying out the different when and where they're going to work as part of their proposal, other than the core worksite. Okay, let's go for a little tour. So I'm just going to log into the Clevr platform, and I'm going to log in as a couple different roles here. So I'm going to start as a teacher and just sort of take a look at what it looks like in Clevr from a teacher perspective or a possible teacher perspective. So, so this Clevr admin shouldn't be there. That's someone in our sandbox working around. But basically, I've landed on a teacher platform, teacher landing page where I have two cards. Here's my listings card, and here's my message board. And the message board is different depending on the role. So a message that a principal would see would be different from a message that a teacher would see. So here's where I would navigate between. I could switch it over to my literacy data form. Now I'm looking at students, my students, tied to my timetable. If I look at a progress report, I'm looking at the students where I'm working on their progress report. But I'm going to focus on the staff forms here today. Here's a COVID attestation form. And again, just me. I click on that. It has my attestation where I would upload the details, a link to where to go, and whether I had my additional dose. So that's private form for me as a teacher. I fill that out, I submit it. The other form I want to take a look at is this teacher growth and evaluation form, where if I go into myself, again, the Clevr admin shouldn't be there. That's just sandbox environment. Permissions would be, in as a teacher, a lot of this information around the supervisor would be populated in the live environment. You can see this required field for me to sign off on. And the contract status also comes in populated from, in this case, SAP, which is their ERP system. I would interact with as a teacher, I would interact with the strands and the components where I'm putting in my self-assessment and linking all of these. And once I work through all of the standards, I get to the workflow tab where I notify I haven't selected school. So I got to fill out the required fields, because the way the permissions work here and the notification says, notify my supervisor, but behind the scenes, we know the supervisor of X school is, therefore the notification goes. So if I put the school here to be Bayview and then go into the notification, it then knows to send it to the school of, the principal of Bayview. It knows who I am, and it signs off on that. I can also fill out the growth plan details. Again, I can expand to see what component A details are. I'm not going to fill these out right now, but there's a workflow the same to notify my supervisor that my workflow, my growth plan is there. This is the observation and walkthrough part. Now, I showed a screenshot where there was a checkbox that said ready to share. That was for the supervisor. I'm in as a teacher, and my supervisor has not yet shared it. Therefore, I can't see any of these details here. And it's giving me a note that this tab will be available once it's ready to share. I can also print the growth plan, print the self-assessment. I can print the entire form. I can also upload different documents. Maybe I want to put a lesson plan here, and I have the permission to upload those. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to switch over and show you what it looks like. So I could log out and log back in, but for the purpose of efficiency, what I did for this demo is I set up some linked accounts. So I can log over to the principal of Bayview School. What it's doing there is it's logging me out as the teacher and logging me back in as the principal. And here's what I see. So different cards based on my profile. I have a different message. Here's my listings card down here. There's that teacher performance appraisal form and the staff that are associated with that form. I can switch this. I can see the literacy data form as well. And it's going to show me all the students in my school with the literacy form. Remember this, the teacher had a few students. This principal has access to the entire school. Again, I'm going to stay focused on the staff related forms today. Up here, I have my forms. So there's my principal growth and performance plan. If I click on that, it takes me directly into my form. And this is the way this one's been laid out, where I can fill out. I think we shared a screenshot of this. There's the goal. Here's the links to the Ontario Leadership Framework. Here are the links to the system and school performance measures, and then the strategic priorities. And again, all the details of the form are down below here. But the main piece here is from the dashboard, all of my forms are here and available for me. Whether it's a timesheet I'm filling out for myself, whether it's my COVID attestation form, these are my forms here. Here's that profile search. I can quickly search for a student, looks up Bella Adams, I click Bella, it takes me into Bella's profile, where I can see all the forms that Bella has linked to her, little image of Bella, and so on. So I'm going to go back out to this principal view. And again, I just have access to Bayview School here. If I click on the teacher performance appraisal report, and I go into Susan Flintstone as a teacher, I'm seeing the details that have been filled out. I have my checklist available for me as a principal. There's my process where I see the overview of an experienced teacher versus a new teacher process. The pre-observation is where I am sitting down with the teacher and I'm indicating what observation this is going to be the focus of that observation. And then as I navigate over to the observation area, those elements that I've selected are populating over here. And this is where I can continue to enter my observation details. So Clevr saves it as I go. I don't have to forget. I don't want to forget. I don't have to submit at the end of the process. I don't have to remember to save it. It saves it as I move from field to field. And again, I could print just the pre-observation, the full observation, the full report. If I print the pre-observation, it's just going to go grab the sub-content of that pre-observation form and lay it out there. Okay. I'm going to go back to the home screen briefly, and I'm just going to, I'm going to navigate over to what a superintendent or an HR leader within a district would potentially see. So again, through my linked accounts, I'm just going to jump over to the superintendent view. So slightly different dashboard, slightly different cards available here. Again, I've got that profile search. I've got a metrics card. I can organize my forms according to groupings. So my learning services forms. And then right now in the sandbox, I have a number of uncategorized forms. There's my teacher performance appraisal. And I can actually navigate here to another school, or I can see all locations in the district. And then I'm going to see the details of all staff. What I'm seeing here on my listings card is completely configured by me, or could be rolled out at the district level. So I could also see, maybe I want to see the historical current appraisal type. And maybe I want to move that current appraisal type up near the top and save that. And it's just changing what's viewed. There's the current appraisal type. So it's new teacher or experienced teacher. I just added that to my view. Any data element on the Clevr form can be viewed. And then there's a couple of leadership frameworks here. School border crossing. So I can review all the school border crossing requests, meaning a parent has requested that a student go to a school outside the boundaries of that school. I could look at a school plan. Now I'm looking at not a staff form, but this is information about the school. So it's a school improvement plan. Links to peripheral documents. Here's where I'm building out my goals for the school. So now it's about Bayview School. It's not about Emily as student. It's not about Susan Flintstone as a staff member. So quick overview, maybe a little longer than I had planned. Hopefully that gives you a sense of the range of forms, staff-related forms that we're currently doing across North America with 140-ish current implementations. So hopefully that gave you a bit of an overview, and please feel free to reach out and contact myself or anybody on the Clevr team for more information about staff forms or other related forms. Thanks for your time. Cheers.